We are going to call this meeting to order. And Rika,
Mayor Breeden,
here.
Mr. Blades,
Present.
Ms. Stevens,
Here.
Mr. Heyman,
Present.
Mr. Maurer,
Here.
5 present, we have a quorum.
Okay, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
I don't have a, oh, yes, I do. Sorry, I don't have a brain either.
Do I have a brain?
Okay.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on closed session? I see we have a phone call. So public? Okay, public, please address the council and state your name, please, for the record.
Yes, my name is Mike, and I'm calling to comment on the first item. Tonight.
Mr. Neal, we can't hear you. Hang on 1 second. Gary, is this an us or a him issue?
Okay, so we can hear him now?
Hello?
Yes, we
Hello.
can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, you can't hear me. Shake your head or something I can see on the TV. Okay, all right, I'm going to continue. I'm calling to comment on the item about the proposed land lease with the Navy. I have commented on this multiple times, and numerous other people have also commented, basically to the effect that we do not want the wastewater plant on Navy property. That's because we do not want to have to give away thousands and thousands of acre feet of water to the Navy like we have for the last 40 years. This water is valuable property belonging to the citizens of Ridgecrest coming out of this wastewater plant. And you're all aware, I'm sure, that the water that we need to get as tagged as augmentation supply of water for the water district is going to cost us $4 million a year. Now, the very minimum the Navy wants to continue getting, I'm pretty sure, is to the tune of $1 million worth a year. Now, this is actually public property, belongs to us, and yet the Navy and apparently Mr. Strand liked the idea of keeping it out on the Navy property and it costing the Ridgecrest taxpayers $1 million a year to lease this property. Let me repeat myself for about the 5th time now. We do not want it on Navy property. We want it on City of Ridgecrest property. In addition, we want this wastewater plant to be taken out of the control of the hands of the city and Mr. Strand, and we want it given to the water district so that they can properly control the use of it and so that they may have proper use of the effluent water coming out of that plant for their and our benefit. One more time, we want the wastewater plant on Ridgecrest City property. I don't know how I can say it any plainer. I hope that this council is going to take action tonight to finally direct their city manager to stop this business with negotiating with the Navy and direct him to get busy getting this long-needed wastewater plant on Ridgecrest City property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Gary, do we have any calls? Okay. All right, then we will close public comment and go into closed session. Thank you all. Okay, we're calling the meeting to order. And would you lead us in the pledge, please? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are thankful for the opportunity to have a meeting together as a city council. We're thankful that we have the ability to be guided by Thee in making decisions. We're thankful for the opportunity we have of living in this community, which is a great community. We're thankful for the blessings Thou provides to the citizens of this community. We pray tonight that we might have Thy direction and guidance, that we might make the decisions that would be proper and would be pleasing unto Thee. We pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please, people, if you are listening, put your phone calls on mute. We're hearing all sorts of background noises. You may put it off mute when it's your turn to speak. Okay, we are coming to the city attorney's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lloyd Pilchin. City Council met in closed session on the items described on the agenda. Staff gave reports. City Council gave direction. No final action, no reportable action taken. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. The next item is public comment on items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council will take no action on any item that does not appear. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Total speaker is asked to provide his or her name, and the total time is 1 hour. Is there anyone who wishes to make public comment? Please make your intent known now. Okay, we see someone's calling in. Caller, please identify yourself and speak your time.
Yes, my name is Mike Neal. So, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay. I'm calling tonight to comment on the Groundwater Authority and the effects on the city of Ridgecrest and things that we seriously need to consider at the city council level. I'm a little disappointed that this subject is not actually on the agenda tonight. This has been a matter of a lot of discussion in the valley, a lot of action by numerous groups who are very concerned about this replenishment fee, and just like to remind people that the replenishment fee is only the start. There's 3 to 5 times more expense coming down the line in not the too distant future above and beyond this. Problem being, of course, that it is all so much money that it's going to impact people severely. And there's a part of this that a lot of people have not really considered, and this needs to be considered seriously, and that is the fact that this fee is not just being charged to water district customers and most of the citizens of the city of Ridgecrest. It's also going to be charged on the order of $5 million a year to Searles Valley Minerals. Now, if you stop and you think about that just a little bit and recognize the fact that Searles Valley Minerals has an estimated 300 to 500 residents in this valley, mostly in the city of Ridgecrest, maybe some in San Bernardino County. They all live here. They own homes here. They spend their spendable income here. And it's hard to envision Searles Valley Minerals being able to continue doing business with that kind of expense thrown upon them. And yet the allocation table of the Groundwater Authority says they want Searles Valley Minerals to pay for every single gallon of water that they use, which is, like I said, about $5 million per year. Now, this is a problem. It's going to be a huge problem, and it needs to be avoided if at all possible. Now, the road we're going down right now, it doesn't look like that it's going to be avoided. And one of our problems has been the total free reign of GA board members being given by their respective agencies. Now, the Water District looks like it's going to consider directing its representative in the direction that it wants him to take, and yet our city attorneys keep saying we can't direct our representative from the city council citing supposed Brown Act violations and so forth and so on. But I suggest strongly that this council can have a vote and give a non-binding direction, and they can certainly strongly voice their opinions about this to the representatives and have them proceed into that meeting. And oh, by the way, it's hard to envision one single person coming to the meeting on August 21st or calling in or whatever it ends up being in favor of this, what's going to do to this valley. This is being charged ahead with in the wrong fashion, incompletely done, and numerous factors not being considered. And this passing as it is at present and being put on the heads of people in this town is simply unacceptable. And I hope we have a good discussion about it at the next city council meeting and people get to air their concerns about that then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there another caller who would like to be online? I see you waving. It appears there is none. Okay, the next item. Okay, we are going to go to council announcements. Council, any announcements?
None for me.
Okay, no council announcements. We are then going to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public would like to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered in listed sequence with the opportunities for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the items before the action is taken. The first item is proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council, Successor Agency, Financing Authority, Housing Authority, regular meeting dated July 1st, 2020. The second item is proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council, Redevelopment Agency, Financing Authority, Housing Authority, regular meeting dated July 15th, 2020. Do any members of the council wish to have any items pulled? Is there anyone from the public who would like to have items pulled? We'll give you 30 seconds to respond. It does not appear that there are any calls. Okay, then a motion, please.
Motion approval.
Second.
Please vote when we get the screen up. There you go.
Oh, sorry, I did it. All right, there you are.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item is the update on local COVID-19 response. Online, we have Supervisor Mick Gleason. We have Matt Constantine from the Kern County Health Department. And we have Jim Suver from the City of Ridgecrest. I'm sorry, Jim. The Ridgecrest Regional Hospital. Jim was going to be in at 6:30. If you're not on now, Jim, would you please call in? You have the number.
Peggy, I'm on.
Oh, you're on. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, Mick, would you start us off, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. Mayor, thank you for inviting Kern County to participate in this evening's meeting. I brought with me Matt Constantine. Matt Constantine is the Director of Public Health for Kern County. And in the interest of efficiency, I'm just going to pass it up to Matt and ask him to give us an update on COVID-19 and the Indian Wells Valley. Matt, over to you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Just checking everybody can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mayor and council members, thank you for giving me the opportunity again to talk briefly just about what is happening with COVID-19 in our county. Today we announced that there were 205 new cases and 1 new death. Those numbers are down. You've certainly seen the numbers higher than that. Part of that is because there's not as many people getting tested, but also the other issue is the state database appears to be down, so many of our positives are still stuck at the state. They've indicated that that will be fixed, and then at some point there will be quite a few cases coming through, so we're still dependent on the state for that action. There has been a lot of interest recently on schools and the guidance from the state. As you're probably aware, the guidance from the state says that in order for a school to offer in-person education, we have to be off of the state's watch list for 14 days. We've not achieved that. We're, in fact, still on the watch list. So schools are required to do distance learning. There is a waiver process for elementary schools that we can help with if an elementary school wishes to open for in-person teaching. There is a process, and we can certainly help them with that. There was also some new state guidance that came down this week about youth sports. As you'll probably be well aware, the state has not allowed sporting events to occur. They have provided some guidance now that under some very limited conditions could allow for youth sports to occur, but as we read this guidance, it really still limits most sporting events. So that still has some significant limitations on it. Supervisor Gleason and Supervisor Scribner have also tasked us with looking at the potential to try to advocate to separate out areas in Kern County that have higher rates of infection versus lower. The theory being that the county as a whole has some high numbers, but there are certainly areas in the county that have lower rates of infection, including Eastern Kern. And so there has been some interest in trying to advocate for parts of Kern to be separated out. We're still working on that. The state has not allowed this to occur. They use the geographic county boundaries as their geographic area. It's likely not going to be successful, but we're doing some work to try to advocate for that ability. Since Kern is so large and has very distinct geographic regions, which is rather unique in the state. So we're still working through that. And finally, the last prepared comment I wanted to make was, as we all know, the state put further limitations on many of our businesses again, and they were limiting indoor types of activities in churches and in barbershops and hair salons and nail salons. It was a pretty long list of activities. So they put us on those restrictions, and unfortunately now what the governor is saying is, regardless of how good or bad our numbers are, we're all going to stay on those restrictions until the state as a whole improves. So regardless if we're successful in driving down the numbers, those local businesses that have had to restrict indoor services would not be allowed to resume until the governor decides the state as a whole has improved, and then he would release those restrictions statewide. Mayor, that kind of concludes my prepared comments. I'm certainly available for any questions or concerns you have.
A couple, what I'd like to hear from Jim first, if we could, because I know that Jim can respond to what's happening locally, but I know we have questions for you, Matt, and so let's get everybody's report, and then we'll take our questions. Mr. Suver, if you could tell us where we are locally.
Yes, Mayor Breeden. So for the last 7 days, we have not had any COVID inpatients in the hospital, which is good. And to date, we have had 14 admissions for COVID, but right now we don't have anybody. Thanks to the efforts of Matt Constantine and his crew, we are getting a huge shipment of protective personal equipment. We have been getting low again, and of course we need to protect our patients, our doctors, our staff, and other people in the community. So thank you, Matt, and your team for your efforts there. We are seeing the test backlog continue to go down. Most of our pending tests, at one time we were waiting for over 800 tests to get the results back. We're down to a very low level now as the commercial labs are getting caught back up as the amount of testing that has gone down. We are still very, very short of testing supplies, both for our in-house equipment as well as for things we send to outside labs. We are hoping that situation will improve next week. Again, we have to reserve our scarce testing kits for people that are seriously ill with COVID, our inpatients and our ER patients, and we're not really able at this time to test asymptomatic people. But other than that, we are starting to see a slower increase in the amount of positives the community is having, and that's similar to the trend that Mr. Constantine mentioned for Bakersfield.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Questions from council, or I see we do have some phone calls. So let's take some phone calls. Matt, if you are ready back there. And then if we have, all right. Caller, would you please identify yourself and state your question?
Hi, this is Jessica Weston from the Daily Independent. My first question is for Mr. Constantine. Could you please repeat, sir, what you just said about is the entire state, we are no longer being judged by counties, but as a state as a whole? Could you please repeat that again?
Yes, of course. So what the governor has indicated, they've used the monitoring list to gauge how each county is doing, and they gauge us in 3 general areas for our statistics. Our positivity rate, our epidemiological rate, and our hospitalization rate. And those were used historically to gauge how well we're doing and if businesses needed to close or could open. Once a county fails the state monitoring program for 3 consecutive days, the state imposed further restrictions on businesses that could provide indoor services. Since we failed that, that new restriction applied in Kern, and unfortunately, we're not able to allow businesses to open back up once we meet the metrics. The governor has indicated that we will have to do it all together as a state. So we're no longer being judged on an individual county level, but at a state level.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. Okay, so I believe you said there are 10 acute care hospitals in Kern County that kind of work as a unit. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
And so if there's an overflow at one hospital, will they be transferring COVID patients to the Ridgecrest Regional Hospital, and will those numbers then be counted amongst our local numbers?
So I'm going to defer mostly to Jim on this, since he is your hospital CEO and knows better than me. But we're looked at it as a whole, as a county as a whole. So we don't segregate geographic regions within the county, although we track it because we're kind of interested to see.
Right,
So it all kind of groups us together. We're all in this together, regardless of how far apart we are.
Well, is there any chance they would ever transfer people from another county, or are they keeping it within the county to be fair?
So there are a couple things that influence that. Hospitals have the ability, and this is not specific to Ridgecrest, but hospitals have the ability to work with other hospitals. Some hospitals are owned by corporations, so they move patients through the corporations at different hospitals. Other times they are transferred because of patient volume in or out of the county. It's usually not significant. Mostly we see people getting transferred out. But if a hospital becomes busy, or an adjoining county like we saw at Imperial County, becomes busy and inundated and can't provide care, there's a mutual aid process that they go through that we help monitor and regulate, that's kind of through the state, that we do then look for help through either region or statewide resources. So it's possible, but it doesn't happen much. Mr. Subaru would probably have a better response than I do, though.
Thanks, Matt. That was actually a good explanation, and I think mutual aid is the right word to do that. Through the efforts of Matt and his team, they've been managed to find places for many overflow if it needed to be in Bakersfield, as well as surge capacity within those hospitals. And Matt also mentioned some of the larger system hospitals being able to transfer from their facilities to other facilities they own. The mutual aid concept is very important, much like when Ridgecrest had our earthquake, and we relied on support from Bakersfield ambulances and Bakersfield hospitals as needed, as well as other county hospitals. It would be our duty, should they get to a point where patient care is being impacted and there's no other ways to take some of their overflow. It could be that we may not necessarily take COVID-positive patients. We may take some of their non-COVID patients. And this would also apply to our skilled nursing facilities as well. Where I see it now is everyone has been very cognizant that we have a very low rate right now in our area, and we have definitely, as much as we wanted to help out the Imperial Valley with their overflow, we did not take any patients from them, despite some pressure from the state of California to do so. Certainly there is a point where if the state goes into total surge mode, as Jessica, I believe you and I have chatted before, the decision may not be mine in the future. But right now, we would certainly want to be good partners with our county hospitals, but right now they've done a good job at Bakersfield handling their patient volume.
Okay, I have one final question kind of related to that, and I believe Mr. Constantine touched on this. You're saying even if this inter-county transfer does happen, it's not statistically significant? Because it seems kind of unfair that local businesses would be subject to being closed down because of numbers of people that were imported here, but you're saying that's not statistically likely to happen, or?
Yeah.
So if I may, if I understand your question correctly, you're concerned if somebody from outside of Kern County gets transferred into a Kern County hospital, could that affect our local businesses being able to open?
Yeah, like, is that, number one, is that number counted, in the metrics, whether or not the county is allowed to have certain businesses open? And number two, you mentioned that it was not a statistically significant number, like it would just be a handful of people. So
we haven't seen we have not seen large numbers of individuals being imported into Kern. They still would have residency outside of Kern, and their positive case would be reported in their county of residence. But as they occupy a hospital bed in Kern, that does use up valuable resources, of course. And although that wouldn't necessarily affect our businesses being able to reopen, it does occupy a bed that, it could be in short supply, especially ICU beds. But we have not seen that as a significant issue in Kern.
Okay, so that you answered, I believe you answered my question, the other question then. So their positive test is counted from their county of residency, not the county that they would be transferred into, if that were to happen?
For testing positive, you're correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Well, can we also clarify on that for a second? I don't think it would, from what Mr. Constantine said, it really wouldn't matter anyways, because all those businesses that are holding state licenses are going to be held to the same all across the whole entire state. So it wouldn't really, it's a moot point is what I'm trying to say.
Matt, can you address that and let me follow up on that same question, because I don't want to sound as irresponsible as what I'm going to ask. But the question is, what's the incentive to trying to do better if you're going to be measured as a whole rather than part of your specific area? Can you address that and also answer Kyle's question?
And I have a question too.
All right, well then let's ask all three of them. Lindsay?
Okay. Because one thing I looked at, first I wanted to ask, have we already received our COVID funds, Ron? For the things we've already done now? Like the barriers and things that we put up?
No, we only get reimbursement once we pay the invoice, and we're anywhere between 3 and 8 weeks out for most of the projects to be completed.
Is that to the county or to the state?
Those projects are going to be done under the county care grant.
And did we receive any separate state COVID monies, or were we planning on it?
Yes, we have, and we're planning on using that to reimburse our public safety response.
And how much money was that?
That will be $362,000.
Because the thing I was wondering is because when I've looked at this, Coalinga and Atwater,
Yeah.
they're only losing $35,000 and under six. Coalinga's $35,000 and Atwater is under $65,000 is what the governor's withholding.
I have an assumption why that's coming. There's more likely the state CARES Act money, and the state is paying those in 6 equal payments. So I would assume that they just lost probably 1 month's worth of their payments.
Okay.
I did call Coalinga and asked them, and that's what they told me.
And so they're just losing 1 month's payment
Yeah,
for
'cause-
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for now.
But you have to understand is that there's more to it than that. I mean, we could affect the funding that comes to the hospital, it could affect the funding that comes
Exactly.
to the county in the way of testing and supplies. So
Okay, so if the three of you could address those questions, please.
Oh, I got lots of questions.
Okay, well, let's let them get these.
Mayor, the gentleman that spoke before you, I didn't catch his name, but his summary was correct about it being a moot point. So that summary was correct. And Mayor, to your question specifically about incentive, we've asked the same thing. They've sort of taken away the incentive. The only one remaining is how this could impact schools. There are some school districts that aren't planning on opening until August 24th. So in theory, there's still an ability to have 14 days of not being on the monitoring list, although that seems very unlikely. So once that passes, Mayor, you're correct. There's no current incentive to improve beyond just, keeping our community healthy and the hospitals healthy.
Jim or Mick, did either one of you like to say something?
Madam Mayor, not this time. I agree with what Matt is saying. We got to see what happens with this August 24th. Hopefully, we can get off this monitoring list as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
But even if we get off the monitoring list, our businesses are still shut down. And so that's where, at a certain point, I just feel like we may need to look at, and I understand, so and I don't know this, Atwater and Coalinga, do either one of them have hospitals, and it hasn't affected their county's funding. It's only affecting the people who are making the decision to not follow the orders. So he's still providing funding to the county if they're following the order. He was withholding it from the entity, which would be the city, that was going against it. And it was only the state fund being withheld.
Gentlemen, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Mayor, this is Matt Constantine. I don't have firsthand knowledge about what the governor did in another city or county. I don't.
Okay. I think do we have other people online to call? Okay. So there was other questions from the council. Go ahead, please. Please identify yourself. Well, go ahead and go ahead, Kyle. Oh, never mind. We have a caller. All right, caller, please identify yourself and speak your comment.
Hi, this is Dave hope Jessica's still listening, because what we have is a dictator up in Sacramento. He's arbitrarily making these rules up, and he doesn't have authority. It's too bad we don't have some good constitutional lawyers on our side here that could go back at the state and demand that they do things logically. Since we talked last, I have gone in and had a teeth cleaning, and guess what? I got to take my mask off. And as far as I know, I still don't have the virus. I also went and talked to a doctor face-to-face, and I wore my mask in that, and we are working on some things, but it has nothing to do with the virus. And the last time I looked on the county numbers, I think it was this morning, the death rate is going down or staying steady. And by that, I mean that the number of deaths in the county compared to the number of positive tests, confirmed tests, is staying very low, and it's less than 1% of those numbers, the confirmed cases. So they're looking at the wrong numbers. They need to go about this totally different. And anyway, some of the businesses that are shut down, to me, like I said before, are essential because of my age, my conditions, and so on. And nobody accounts for those, and they don't give them any leeway at all. And some of those businesses I don't expect to see back. I'm sorry. That's the way it's going, and he is shutting them down. He is putting them out of business, not just shutting them down. He's putting them out of business. So I will shut up and let you guys think about it.
Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Is there council? Pardon me? Well, I don't see any color light yet.
Yeah, that's the blue light.
All right, is there a caller online now? All right, caller, please identify yourself and ask your question.
This is Ronald Porter. My question is, can anyone give me this constitutional, both state and federal, and state law that gives the governor the authority to do any of this? Because his office won't respond to me, so someone there should be able to answer the question.
Thank you, sir. We do know that there were others who asked that question, and we got a response from our attorney last time. Lloyd, would you address that again as you did last time?
Yeah, you bet, Madam Mayor. So what I said last time was that I have not heard any serious arguments that the governor is without authority, but I would encourage the member of the public or any member of the public to hire an attorney and file their lawsuit if they think they have a good case.
Okay, thank you, sir. You've given
That's not
direction.
an acceptable answer, because each and every one of you, including the county officers, took an oath of office to uphold and support the Constitution. They have to go out and find out for us. There are public servants. I want someone to answer the question. If you can't answer the question, you're all treasonous.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No, I'm not done.
Please then finish up. You've got a couple of more minutes.
Well, I have as much time as I want to use. The other one, I want to know what
I'm sorry, you
scientific
have
study-
5 minutes, sir.
Well, you can argue all you want over that. I want to know what's the scientific study they have to come up with the numbers in the state to say, well, this is when we can open and this is when we can't.
Okay, we will do that.
No, I want an answer.
No,
Well,
he's
we
asking-
don't-
He's asking Mr. Constantine for the numbers of what means the state is doing this.
Matt, can you address that? I didn't understand he was addressing Matt. Matt, can you answer that, please?
I couldn't quite understand the question, Mayor. The number of what? I'm sorry?
I'll repeat it.
Please do.
What scientific evidence do we have at how we came up with the parameters, when we're going to open, when we're not going to open, and what numbers we need to reach to do so?
So Mayor, this is the governor's order. It's not anything that the city or the county issued, and I don't know what was the scientific basis of the governor's decisions. I wasn't privy to that, and I don't know.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ron, you're almost at the end. Do you have any other questions?
I still want an answer. Where's the constitutional
He just
authority?
said he doesn't have that with him right
well, then
now.
each and every one of you have a constitutional duty to do so and find that answer.
Thank you, sir. We'll work on
Don't
that.
hang up on me.
I'm not hanging up you. I just said thank you. You told us what we were doing. You
Yes, but I
have
want
1
an answer,
minute
and
left.
I want to know why I'm not getting it on either question. Do we have to be down to 1 case, 10 cases, 1,000 cases? What's the number?
Unfortunately, Mr. Porter, only the governor is privy to that information, apparently, because he hasn't written it down anywhere. He's changing the rules as we go, so we don't know. It used to be if we were off the list for 3 days, then we could open up, but now he just changed it to the whole state needs to be good, whatever that means. And so we don't know. We know that other people, the church has filed questioning the authority of the governor to do this. Unfortunately, the courts are controlled by liberal majorities, and so they are ruling in favor, saying that the governor is within his right to do this.
Well, first
Okay. All right.
Let's finish this.
No, sir.
Yes, we are
No,
going to finish
we are
the
not going to finish it because it can't be answered
Well,
tonight.
let me finish.
Finish your question in 36 seconds, please.
I'm just the city council has the right to go to the state attorney general and demand that the state attorney general show his authority. That's a very simple thing we do, just a simple letter.
Thank you, sir. Are you done?
No, but you clearly want to throw me off, so I guess I don't
No,
have a
you
choice.
have 12 seconds. Please finish.
Well, I want a discussion as why the city can't.
This isn't a discussion item. This was an update from Kern County and from Ridgecrest Regional Hospital.
Well, this is a discussion item because you're our representatives and you're supposed to be representing us.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like us to consider writing a letter asking
We
that.
can put that on the agenda for next time.
I don't think we have to put that on the agenda to say we want to give direction.
It's not an item on the agenda right
It
now.
doesn't have to be an item on the agenda to give direction.
Let's, we are not, I don't want to continue to hold our speakers up while we debate what we can do right now. Is there any other public comment? Is there any other call-ins? Please do so. All right, council, let's ask our questions. All right, now there's somebody. Please identify yourself.
Hi, this is Jessica Weston again. I forgot to ask the obvious question, and I apologize if you guys have covered this because I stepped out of the room so I wouldn't have an echo chamber in my phone. But how are we doing on ICU beds and ventilators for the moment? And can Mr. Constantine or Mr. Seaver comment on whether or not we have in fact had patients transferred here from other areas so far? If they can divulge that, they may not be able to.
Jessica, it's Jim. I can answer the questions locally. Without any ICU or any COVID patients in the hospital, we certainly have ICU bed capability to handle them. I can tell you that many of the patients that we did admit for COVID actually did not require an ICU bed. As we've gotten better at treatments, we've been able to not have to use ICU beds to the same degree as maybe initially for that as well. We have not taken any transfers from other hospitals at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other callers? If not, we will go on to council to ask questions? Are there callers online, please? Yes. Okay, caller, please identify yourself.
Yes. My name is Mike Neal. Yeah, turn that on. Okay, anyway, I'm trying to get the mute turned on. Okay, I'm good. All right. First, I'd just like to observe Mr. Matthews' statement that we have a dictator running our state. That is clearly obvious at this point. In a state that has a length of approximately 1,000 plus miles, it is probably one of the most asinine things that I have heard in quite some time, and I've heard a number of them over the years. To say that the whole state has to be, get into their, arbitrary, ever-changing guidelines for them to allow cities and counties to open up their business. It appears that the agenda there is to make sure that many of our mom-and-pop businesses are closed and shut down forever, put out of business. That is absolutely disgusting. On another front, I'd like to address some information that I emailed this out to the council today. I don't know how many of you noticed you got it or had taken the chance to look at it, but this is a white paper, and now I'm speaking to Mr. Gleason and Mr. Constantine and Mr. Suver. You'll see where I'm going here shortly. This is been a matter of debate by the propaganda in the mainstream media against it, but just let me note that this Dr. Simone Gold has put together a white paper, and I have a copy of it. It's been attempted to be suppressed, but I have that and several others. And on page 21 of this white paper, it says the safety of hydroxychloroquine is so well established it should have been over the counter decades ago. And in fact, it actually is in much of the world. The problem is it's so safe, but there's no profit margin to move it over the counter. Now, I'm sure you're probably all familiar. The regimen is simply hydroxychloroquine with zinc and possibly an antibiotic. This needs to be done in the early stages of finding a person with COVID-19, and in the vast majority of the cases, it's game over then. The person's going to get well. They don't need to go to the hospital. Most of them just go home and take it, and they're fine. Now, this is only one citation out of multiple, and there are 17 different studies, I think, or more cited in this study. In this white paper. Here's one from Dr. Harvey Risch. He's professor of epidemiology at the Yale School of Public Health. He published this in affiliation with Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and he stated, U.S. cumulative deaths through July 15 are 140,000. Had we permitted hydroxychloroquine use liberally, we would have saved half of them, at least 70,000, and very possible we could have saved 105,000.
Mike,
yeah.
You are reading studies. Would you please just forward those to those gentlemen, and that way, if they have the opportunity and feel the need to comment on those, that they could? I don't want to take time for you to read studies to them.
I'm not reading the whole study, Peggy.
Well, no, I know you're not reading the whole study, but it's not fair to expect them to make comments on something they can't see.
I'm not asking them to comment on the studies. They haven't even seen it yet.
That's what I'm saying. Send it to them.
Don't take my time about speaking, please. I have further things to ask. My next statement was going to be to ask directly to these three gentlemen, will they look at this white paper? Will they give it serious consideration and think for themselves? We're totally out of the realm of closing businesses down and so forth. Now, we're talking about the health of Kern County citizens. You have doctors in Bakersfield that are using this regimen, but there are probably many that are not even aware of it. You gentlemen are in a position to make it known and let them make their own decisions as to the quality of medical care for their patients. So can I get just a simple yes or no? Will you look at this paper? Will the guys that should be qualified to understand it, will you read it and consider it?
Mr. Neal, this is Mick. I'd be delighted to. Please send it to me, and I agree with much of you've spoken about tonight.
Okay, very good. What about Mr. Suver and Mr. Constantine?
Mike, it's Jim. Please do send it to me because I'm always interested. in additional sources. Just a matter of fact about law, each doctor has an individual license to practice medicine, not subject to any control per se by a non-medical professional. So please let me finish. So there are doctors that are very interested in using this medication. There are others that are concerned about it. I can tell you the local hospital, if a physician desired to use the drug, we certainly have no prohibitions against it, but I would love to get your article so I could share it with my medical staff.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Constantine, I didn't hear from you.
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to read it. Please send it.
Okay, I will do so. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other callers who wish to speak? I see none up there. Okay, counsel, do you have questions for these gentlemen?
Yeah, it was from Mr. Constantine. I'm really just asking for clarification, mostly for the public. The guidance put out to schools from the state, now back to the county, does that also apply to private schools?
Yes, sir. Both the guidance document on closing and the waiver process applies to private schools also.
Thank you, sir. And the guidance provided for youth sports, when I read the guidance from the county, it seemed like there was a gray area where sports could be allowed, but the concern was where there would be people congregating, like for a tournament or a game. So does that mean to say it could be interpreted that there could be sports and team play as long as there wasn't parents and crowds, or is there a firm, hard stance that there's not going to be sports, youth sports?
So those are good questions. The first thing to recognize is this is guidance from the state. It's their recommendation that the county follow it. Unfortunately, that youth sports guidance document, which is very short, is vague. It talks about, not allowing competition, that you need to have distance between each other, not shared equipment. So a strict reading of that would indicate that most sporting events wouldn't be allowed.
Okay. Can I ask because you just made a point and I want to clarify. So you just said that these are guidelines. So I've had someone ask me, are these guidelines laws? Like, what requires us to have to follow these guidelines? Or are these just guidelines, aka suggestions?
So yes, ma'am, these are guidelines issued from the state with the expectation that the county follow them. We as a county will not enforce it. It is up to each city and elected board members to decide what they're going to do. However, if we are not implementing the guidelines and allowing businesses to open in opposition, then it is likely that there could be some action. And you guys had mentioned 2 cities within the Central Valley that were affected. There is the threat of potential financial withholding if a county is not, or a city is not complying. But these are guidelines only.
So there's no legal requirement of following the guidelines.
So I'm not an attorney, and I don't want to respond specifically, but
Well, Lloyd, could you answer that question?
Well, if it's part of, this is Lloyd, if it's part of the governor's order, then that has the force of law.
Right, and that all makes sense to me. We want to follow those guidelines. Last thing we want to do is bring down the wrath of the state. We don't need that. I was just saying that when I read line by line the guidance that came from the county, it seemed like there was some gray area where you could allow sports to play. It just maybe we wouldn't be busting the guidelines. There is a chance, and this probably has to be interpreted by Ron. I'm guessing you need to look into this and decide how we want to do this, and then the council will make a decision or maybe just direction. But it just seems like there is a possibility that there could be sports, or you decide that it's not worth the risk. And that was the last question that I had for you, Mr. Constantine. Thank you for hanging on for that. And the next question was for Mr. Suver and maybe Mr. Constantine as well, and that is, we saw the free testing go away. Everybody explained thoroughly why that testing went away, and I appreciate those explanations. But when do we expect to see the testing come back as we saw it existing a few weeks ago.
This is Jim. I'd rather Matt answer the question, but he'll get me back if I don't answer it. I would like to bring it back. We, though, as part of the conditions of accepting test kits, have to agree to follow the protocols by the CDC or the state about who we test. And so even if we do get an adequate supply of tests, if the CDC or the state of California says we should not be testing asymptomatic residents in town, I'm bound by that. And much this follow-up to Ms. Stevens' question about guidelines, yes. The problem with my guidelines, if I don't adhere to them, they can either reduce our net supply order or take away the hospital license. So the short answer, Kyle, is we would like to, and if we have it with under the window of whom we can test, no one would like it back more than I. And Matt, hopefully I got that one right.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
That's fine.
Thank you. And then, Ron, I guess we can revisit, or I'm sure it looks like you had a comment on my previous statement.
Yeah, my concern goes to the liability the city may place itself into. I know that one of the things that the president is trying to work on is liability protection for businesses that open and people that allegedly get COVID within the businesses. So we know at the federal level there is a desire to get liability protection for businesses. I know one of the reasons why the school district is closed is also due to liability reasons for if the kids get COVID, employees get COVID. My concern is that if we rent out facilities with the specific purpose of having youth sports activities, that if kids get sick, are we now in line to get sued for being engaged in basically dangerous behavior? That's my concern about it. It's one thing if a group of kids go out in the field on their own and are supervised by their parents, but it's another if we actually condone it and collect fees for it. That's my concern.
Any other questions from the council? For these people? No. Okay. I see no question, no people in the public. So, Mr. Supervisor Gleason and Mr. Constantine, I say thank you again for putting up with this, and thank you for sharing all this. We appreciate your willingness and welcome you back whenever you want to come back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so this item, is there any other discussion on our local response here? I understand, Lindsay, then you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would like us to start doing some analysis on, Lloyd, the guideline situation, and if we have to follow it. I think also Mr. Porter's question on to the AG, is there a never-ending term on this emergency disaster declaration? At what point are we going to say this is enough? And I understand that could risk a little bit of funding, but I do have concerns with several points made about our stores not being able to recover to sustain this. Yeah, the big box people, you know, they're fine. And it's not right. And if the city were to take a stand, that would provide cover for some of these businesses. And I understand some of them have state licenses. There are some places in town that have state licenses that are still operating, and they've made the choice themselves to risk their state license. But people have to make a living. We've seen it said the unemployment callbacks are taking over 6 weeks. So people can't get unemployment, and Congress federally is about to let some of this run out. So at a certain point, we have to allow these people to work. We don't want our citizens relying on government handouts. That's not the way America was built, designed to run. I'm not for moving into a communist, socialist fashion, and I would like to resist that. And I understand that that might put us at some risk, but I just kind of want to get a sense of where that line is for some of you. And if we want to start writing some letters saying, hey, we don't agree with what you're doing, this isn't right, and you keep changing the rules.
Go ahead.
I truly understand the frustration and where you're coming from. But unfortunately, it doesn't take away from the fact that we don't have that jurisdiction. I wish we did. But the businesses are governed by their state licensing boards, every one of them. And we as a council, I mean, we could say that and it would feel good, but it has no bite, and it puts them at, it's their risk they take if they open. But we have no jurisdiction over that. It would do us no good to tell them, we don't want to abide by the governor's rules, and we're not going to do that, and we say the businesses can open. That's a moot point. It means nothing. I mean, unfortunately, and I wish it did mean something, but it doesn't. They still have to abide by their state licensing agencies, whether it's the cosmetology board or the medical board or there is a governing agency that probably governs and I believe it was said before by the county when we had them talking before, that governs all these businesses. And so they still have to come down under the wrath of their licensing agency. So I don't see a way around that. I wish there was a way around it.
To send a letter, as Lindsay has suggested, and we all have said that. But if all it is a feel-good thing for our businesses, that doesn't solve anything, and it doesn't help them open.
But inaction definitely will have no results. Just sitting here, not saying anything, not doing anything.
Well, we've been doing something, Lindsay, my goodness.
I think the county has been
They have,
in
gone
a battle
above and
through
beyond.
all of this to try to get this to the point of being able to open. And so I think, the fight is there, but we, as a council, I don't see where we have any of that ability.
Mr. Porter's proposal that we write a letter to the state attorney general, I can guarantee you what the answer will be back from that state attorney general. That state attorney general is going to support the governor, because our state attorney general is very liberal, has always supported the governor. So he's going to rule that the governor's legal. So
Well, we've seen the ones that the courts that ruled against the churches.
Yeah.
We've already seen that. We know that the churches who sued wanting to open, and the courts ruled that they couldn't reopen. I think it comes down to, we see many I see it. I see businesses in our community that are supposed to be closed. I see it is not our job to go out and hit them over the head. Do we go out and encourage them? I just think we don't do that. We don't have the responsibility and the right to say, open, we don't care what happens to you, because it's not our responsibility. Our responsibility to the businesses is to give them everything we possibly can and do everything for them that we possibly can and make it right for those businesses to be open. But there are some things we have, as you referred to, we don't have the authority to do. And to argue whether we should or could, we don't. So write a letter. I agree. There's no problem writing a letter to show our support for our businesses, because I'm one of them, and you're one of them, and you're one of them. We're all living in this with hell over our heads. How do I stay open next week? What do I do? Are those people that are open today because it was all right, and 3 days later find out that they're closed because it's now not all right? How do you operate a business in that manner? You can't. But this is what we see today.
Well, the problem is the restaurants open up, and they bring in all this food, and then they get closed down again.
Yeah, that's what I've heard many of them. But now some of them are smart enough and wise enough to find the ways around to be able to
Well,
operate
right
outside.
now, basically, we know nothing is opening until whatever rules he has in his head for the whole state. So, I mean, right now we look at it as basically you can count on nothing being opened probably until maybe, sometime in November.
After
the election.
November 3rd.
Yes. So,
I saw something interesting, though, Saturday. I was driving down Ridgecrest Boulevard, and right over here on West Ridgecrest Boulevard, there was people doing haircuts out on the sidewalk.
Yeah. And they can. They can't
The
do.
problem is all their barber chairs are anchored down inside the building. I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly. I think they brought a chair out, but I thought that was very nice that someone, it's out in the shade. I have a hard time going to a restaurant and sit in a shaded area that's 103 degrees.
Well, we are working on a grant through the Community Development Block Grant to be able to provide some easy ups and heaters and air conditioners for some of the restaurants to help improve their status. I know that Ricka and Melissa are working on that with county planning. We're trying to get that through. But just have to be mindful that at the end of the day, the city cannot be bankrupt along with everybody else. I mean, we're struggling also. So to put us in a position where we can be financially hurt and lay off employees doesn't really prove a point.
if we don't have tax revenue coming in, that could happen very well as well. I mean, at a certain point, the state could say, we're not giving you any more handouts through COVID, and then all of our businesses are closed, and then what happens?
You also have to remember the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the Navy base, which is slowly opening up. If they shut down, then we're in significant issues. I don't agree with everything that's going on, but we still have to follow the guidelines as an entity. And I know that we have a low infection rate, probably primarily because the base shut all their employees down and made them stay home. A lot of people, including some of my family members, are locked in the house working teleworking. They're not too happy about it. But that is our major employer, and if we, do things that make the infection come to our community, we just lock down even more. You have a couple hundred folks from the Army here on a deployment. If that goes away, then that affects the businesses that are still open. So I get where you're coming from, but we still have to follow the rules. We still have to endure these guidelines, primarily for the protection of our community. There is going to be effects, and at the end of the day, we are a very lean staff to start off with. To be able to put our budget at risk to have other issues just complicates things immensely.
Well, I know a lot of base employees are working from home, but I drove around town the other morning at 6 o'clock, and I made the mistake of driving up Norma Street and turning east on Inyakern Road. It took me 5 minutes, maybe a little longer than 5 minutes, to go down to the triangle where I could get off because both lanes were backed up with everybody getting on base. So there are still a lot of people working on base.
Yeah, we are getting the STAR report from the hotels and the RACBB, and we are seeing a slight recovery in the number of people that are visiting the hotels. It is coming up, and that is a significant source of revenue for our community, and we should be receiving some of our sales tax numbers here fairly quick. We have received some from the significant parts of the COVID shutdown, March and April. We did see a significant drop in sales tax there. So, we're going to have to work through this like everybody else is. I mean, we're closed. It's not fun. It's inconvenient. And it makes it difficult for us to move forward as a community. But
So the youth sports, I understand the city won't have their youth sports because of the risk, but we have other groups in town that are separate from the city. Could we allow them they would be operating on their own, they would just be using the field?
well, we cannot. I mean, the facilities we normally rent, we cannot rent out to them knowing that they are doing that. I did see the other night the Starlight volleyball team. They set up volleyball courts out in Freedom Park, and they were practicing. there is a fine line. I mean, the whole reason for this is to slow the infection. Now, we have not been ravaged by this. I would say we'd probably have a different stance on this if we'd had, 2,000 infections instead of, 105. But because it's low, we have this perception issue. But we also have to understand is that we have this low infection because we have been following the rules. So it's kind of a conundrum.
I had an interesting deal the other day. I did a little research because South Dakota did not close down. And South Dakota, I think, has a population very similar to Kern County, and their infection rate is lower than Kern County's, and their death rate is a lot lower than Kern County's, and yet they've had everything open this whole time. But it's a very, I think they have less than 1 million population in the whole state. So
They're also having Sturgis this weekend, so.
they're having
I didn't
surgeons.
hear what you said.
They're having Sturgis this weekend, so they're having visitors come through their state tourism, so.
Yeah.
And they're still maintaining low levels.
Okay, have we,
Their tourism has likely increased because
This is
they're
no other place to
allowing
go.
things open. There are a lot of people who are traveling to these places where they can go eat at a restaurant indoors. So that's something else to think
I
of.
know, we went and visited family in Arizona here 6 weeks ago for that.
okay, do we have any other items on this we need to discuss?
I think we're beat it to a
Okay,
pulp.
let's go then. A request for authorization to record final track number 6908, Phase 2. Is Lauren on, or who's got it? Lauren?
Honorable Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, please.
Honorable Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, council members, I've got the next 3 items with you tonight. Hopefully a little easier on your digestive tract than the last topic. I've got, first of all, your consideration of recording a final map, Phase 2 for 6908, and then the next item is a parcel map. We're going to be asking you to finalize that parcel map, and then finally to award a construction contract. So hopefully this is smooth sailing for you. This particular item, Honorable Mayor, council members, the improvements have been completed for 6908 Phase 2. As you know, we've already approved Phase 1, so this is the sequence of construction for this track 6908. The developer is IWB Construction with David and Pamela Pearson as co-trustees. They've satisfied all the conditions of approval that were required by the Planning Commission. They've satisfied the requirements of providing approved plans. They've entered into an improvement agreement. They've submitted their guarantee for 1 year for the off-site improvements. We've got utility letters submitted, as well as that they've satisfied their tax requirements for the project. Honorable Mayor, City Council, as a staff member, as your city engineer, we do recommend the recordation of final track map 6908 Phase 2. We're asking for your consideration tonight to please authorize the city manager to sign the improvement agreement. We're also asking you to accept the street improvements and offers of dedication as shown on the final map. We're also asking you to authorize me as your city engineer, authorize the city clerk and the planning commission secretary to sign the final map. And finally, please direct the city clerk to record final track map 6908 Phase 2 to be recorded with the county recorder's office. Honorable Mayor, I'm available to you for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Culp, do we understand the developer is in concurrence with all this?
I believe so, ma'am. I've not had a discussion with him. This is put on at his request to have the map finalized. As far as staff is concerned, the developer has satisfied all the conditions that were imposed by the Planning Commission and satisfied all the submittal requirements required of us through the Ridgecrest Municipal Code. So at a staff level, we're satisfied that all provisions have been met, and we're recommending that the council consider the request to record the final map.
Is there any questions or comment from council?
I move approval of the action requested.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Culp. Okay, the next item you have, number 5.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, this is very similar to our last action. We have a commercial parcel map for your consideration tonight. This commercial parcel map lies along the China Lake Boulevard between Raider and Bowman Road. This is I believe if memory serves me correct, I believe it's 13 commercial parcels as a part of this map. It's unphased in terms of its recordation, so we will be asking you to approve the recordation of this final map in total. Honorable Mayor, they have satisfied all the provisions within the tentative map as identified by the Planning Commission. They have provided us an improvement security that's been reviewed by the City Attorney's Office. There's also a development agreement that has been crafted, reviewed, and approved by both the administrative staff as well as legal counsel. There's also an operational agreement that was reviewed, analyzed by administrative staff as well as legal counsel, and has been signed by the city manager. Along with the development agreement, there are covenants, conditions, and restrictions for this project. Those have been carefully reviewed by administrative staff as well as legal counsel. Honorable Mayor, as your city engineer, we are asking for your consideration tonight to accept the improvement security that's been posted for the off-site improvements for commercial parcel map 12291. We're asking you to please authorize the city manager to sign the improvement agreement. We're also asking you to accept the street improvements and the offers of dedication as shown on the final map. Please authorize myself as your city engineer, the city clerk, and the Planning Commission secretary to sign the final parcel map. And please ask or direct the city clerk to record the final parcel map 12291 with the county recorder's office. Honorable Mayor, that concludes my report. I'm available to you and the council for any questions.
Same question. The applicant has no issues. The developer is happy with this agreement.
Yes, the agreements were actually crafted in the draft form by the developer.
Okay.
And reviewed and approved by both the city administrative staff as well as legal counsel. And it was at the developer's request this item be placed before you tonight after satisfying all the requirements within the Ridgecrest Municipal Code.
Thank you.
Mr. Culp, what are the items that are covered by the bond? What are they going to provide?
The off-site improvements, which entail sidewalks along that reach. There's no sidewalk, pedestrian walkway. Also, there's going to be a center median constructed to have restrictions on turning movements at the main entrance into the project. There will be a protected left-hand turn pocket. So the project's main entrance will only have right turn out, right turn in, but it will also have a protected left-hand turn pocket, which will allow traffic going southerly to be able to enter the project. There's also some work on the traffic signal to Raider. The traffic study that was provided indicates that there needs to be some improvements to the intersection there and to the traffic signal for phasing to accommodate the additional traffic load at that intersection for some of the commercial accesses off of Raider Avenue. There's some additional work that has to be done. The street lighting is going to be another item of improvement. Basically, most of all improvements on site have been satisfied. So that, in terms of the existing curb gutters and sidewalks, however, they do have to construct commercial driveways off of both Channel Lake Boulevard and also off of Raider.
Okay.
We have negotiated with them also to do some drainage improvements, but the bonding is for public improvements.
Thank you.
Are they entering into a lighting and landscaping district?
They're going to provide their own.
No, they have not. Actually, the administrative staff come up with a process for actually having them be responsible for the lighting. So they will be responsible for the billing, for the energy bills for the lighting, as well as for any of the landscaping that they're going to have that might occupy the public right of way. They've come up, the administrative staff has come up with a different approach rather than having to enter into a formal lighting and landscape maintenance district.
Is that something that we're going to try to do with others from now on, or?
This is a commercial thing.
I think this is a unique animal.
Right. Well, because we had the Warrens, right? That was a commercial area, but they were going to have to enter into a lighting and landscaping district. So I was just, is this a new option for other developers if they're commercial?
It very well may be, and honestly, council member, I'm afraid I am at a loss to be able to discuss the details of the methods that administrative staff have come up with, but I do think it holds great promise for these type of commercial ventures where you have multiple commercial parcels that may share responsibilities through CC&Rs or some sort of agreement between all the property owners to share expense for common facilities. So I think there is a unique opportunity here that the administrative staff has discovered that we may look at as a promising new way of taking care of our landscaping and lighting for these type of commercial land developments.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we should discuss that because it's a little different than what we've been doing for other developers. So
I move approval of the action requested.
second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
I see a comment that it's very hard to get on the line. Are we having any problems back there at all, Gary?
He says
No. Okay. Okay, I just saw all the comments. All right. So the next item is item number 6.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, this is a item in which we're going to be asking you to award a construction contract to SynCal Construction. If you might recall, approximately 2019, no, I think it was 2018, we'd gone out to bid for trying to construct ADA driveway improvements as a part of phase 1 of our transition plan for ADA. And the bids came in quite high, and we had to reject all bids. we were successful in going back to the county CDBG administrative staff and asked for additional grant funds to allow us to proceed with this project. We have prepared amended plans, revised plans. We've gone to bid. We've received 3 bids on the project, and we found that SynCal Construction was the lowest responsible bidder for doing our driveway approaches to comply to ADA requirements along this commercial corridor of Ridgecrest Boulevard. We're asking the City Council to please award this construction contract to SynCal Construction. We're also asking City Council to have a 10% contingency added to the project. So with that, Honorable Mayor, I've got the following actions that I'm requesting for your consideration. The first of which is to decline the additive bid alternate, and brief discussion there is that the additive bid alternate was to remove and replace the concrete curb and gutter associated with each driveway, and instead we, on our base bid, we had the alternative of doing curb cuts, in which we did indeed realize considerable savings. So we're asking the City Council, first of all, to decline the additive bid alternate, which was for the removal and replacement of the curb and gutter sections associated with the replacement of the driveways. The second item is to ask your consideration to award construction contract for the base bid only to SynCal Construction to construct the ADA improvements along Ridgecrest Boulevard from Normal Street to Chime Lake Boulevard in the contract amount of $426,300. And then item 3, we're asking you to authorize the finance director to amend the budget to reflect all appropriate capital revenue and transfer accounts and create a purchase order for SynCal Construction in the amount of $468,930, and that amount includes the 10% contingency. And then finally, Honorable Mayor, Council, we're asking you to consider to please authorize the City Manager, Ron Strand, to execute the contract. Honorable Mayor, Council members, again, I'm available to you for any questions you may have.
What are we doing with the extra $100,000 left over from the CDBG money?
There is, as far as I have been informed by administrative staff, there's been no direction to me as a bid management personnel as to what the administrative staff intends to do with the additional CDBG funds.
So we don't lose it. That's what I wanted to clarify. We can keep it in our rolling fund. Is that? I'm getting a head nod from Bard from those of you who can't see him on the screen.
Okay. There is a contract between CDBG and the city, and I think that our administrative staff probably has a better handle on administration of that contract between the county and the city than I do, and can offer a better explanation.
Right. So just to make it clear to the citizens, because it's not on this headline in here, this is not city expending funds. These are grant funds that we have. So that way we're clear on that. 100%, there's no matching funds. The contingency is also included within that amount. So I motion approval.
That is correct.
I second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Okay, item number 7. Accept a resolution designating a voting member and alternate or alternates to attend the League of California Cities Annual Conference and represent the city of Ridgecrest. Rika, you have this?
Yes, ma'am. At this current moment, the league is planning to hold an in-person conference. They have not changed that. So as in past years, the city needs to designate a primary voting member and then one, possibly two alternates. Just keep in mind that you must attend if it's in person, so whoever you designate needs to know that they can go, or the alternate has to attend. We have to register you for the conference. So at this time, I'd like you to discuss who would be your primary and your one or possibly two alternates. The conference right now is scheduled for October 7th through the 9th in Long Beach.
Is there anyone who would like to do this?
So I'm already, I think, our representative for the league, and I had sent an email out to see if they were still going to hold it, and I never got one back. I'm not sure if they've been in correspondence with you, Rika. Just talking about the likelihood of them continuing with it, it seems like it's that's a far-fetched to think that they're going to hold a conference of that size.
I would tend to agree with you, but every correspondence I've got, which the most recent one was last week, they still intend to hold it and will change it if things continue or get worse.
If our dictator governor allows it.
Yeah, can I just add it seems very irresponsible, I'm not directing this at you, that we're shutting down businesses for an undeclared period of time, but all of the city officials would be allowed to congregate in masses at a convention center in Long Beach.
We don't know for sure. They're figuring it's far enough out.
That's what they're hoping.
During closed session, I got a call from Laura Morales, who's our representative, and I said, I'm in closed session, can I call? And she said, call me back first thing in the morning. So I don't know what it is, but it could be she's saying. So do you want to call her back?
No, ma'am. She wanted to talk to you, but I would assume as soon as they have any guidance, they'll send it out to all the city clerks for us to disseminate to you. So that's just the guidance we have right now, and what we need to consider as you guys decide who's going or going to call in, or however the conference ends up being held.
Well, I wouldn't mind going. I don't need to be the primary, but I wouldn't mind going.
I'm already the representative. I can carry on in that role.
And you could be our
I could be an alternate.
Or you,
depending on if
go.
I ever get knee surgery and when that happens.
How many, Rika? So let me ask you this. What if we do, to adopt right now, can we put as many people on that list as alternates as we want?
Two.
You can only have two.
You can have two alternates. Yeah, here's the thing. The guidance that comes down from the league says that however many people you put out there are supposed to be registered for the conference. So if you put three, I'm supposed to register 3 people, even though maybe only the primary attends. So
and we pay for 3?
And we register and we pay.
So we need
How
to.
much is it?
I don't know. That hasn't come out yet. Okay. I assume it'll be considerably cheaper if they decide to go Zoom, but they are still charging for you to attend telephonically or however it ends up being. So we absolutely have to have a primary and one alternate, but you can decide on 2, and all 3 of you or 2 of you would be registered and be able to attend, whether it's in person or telephonically.
And does it have to be an elected representative? Could Ron be an alternate?
It has to be a council member.
It does, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious, because he's been going every year, so that's why I was just.
Yeah, the league conference, the annual conference is open to city managers, council members, city clerks. We all have different things that we attend there, but unfortunately, council members are only the voting members.
Oh, okay. I was just asking, because I knew it was open to all of them, so I was like, do they get to vote?
Yeah.
So.
Well, if these 2 are wishing to go, I would think we accede to their wishes. And
Yeah, unless you have other guidance from experience, Madam Mayor, it's over to you. But I don't mind
Me or you?
I don't know who it is, but it's pretty intense.
I haven't attended one since the 1980s or 90s back in San Francisco.
The haircuts were different.
I was gonna say, if you need to put a third person down, you can put me, but I don't know if we want to do that or not, so.
We can just do one alternate if that's what you guys decide. So I can put Mr. Blades as the primary, Mr. Maurer as the alternate, and then you guys just need to make that motion and approve it. Thank you, ma'am. Second?
Second. Do we need to vote on that?
And please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item is a public hearing and approval of resolution canceling the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Community.
Are you coming across? You're turned off, aren't you?
Oh, you guys told me to turn it off, sorry. A public hearing and approval of resolution canceling the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Community Development Block Grant Funds 17.18.1. Rika, do you want to talk about it and then I'll open the hearing, or how do you want to do that?
We can do it either way.
Let's open the hearing and you tell us what the action is.
Okay, I was just recently given the direction to take on the CDBG, so I'm trying to clean up some things here with this one. The funds from this project, 1718.1, were transferred to project 1714.1 some time back. The county gave me direction that in order to cancel 1718.1, we had to have council action. So I had to notice it as a public hearing. We have to accept comments if there are any. And then you guys just basically have to approve the cancellation of the project. We didn't lose the funds. They were actually transferred into what Lindsay was just speaking about for the ADA transition plan. So it's just a cleanup is all it is, but it had to be a public hearing because we were part of the county's entitlement jurisdiction, and the citizen participation plan calls that you have to make it a public hearing and the council has to take action. So.
Okay, so is there, I'm receiving comments from public and council.
Did you open the hearing?
I did.
You did?
Is there any comments? Okay, any council comments? Okay, I am going to close the hearing and we will take action.
A motion approval?
Second.
You guys are easy. Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I knew as soon as I said that, that was coming.
The next item is committee reports. Finance?
We will be meeting later this month.
Infrastructure?
We canceled our last meeting. The next meeting is the fourth Thursday of this month.
Okay.
If we have anything on the agenda.
I'm sorry. Economic Development?
Did not meet. And then Parks and Recreation, we have a special meeting scheduled for the 18th.
At 5?
I was thinking 5:30, Doc. Is that what you remember?
The normal says 5. Do you want to make it 5:30?
Narissa's already scheduled it, put it on there tentatively. Let me look back on it. I was thinking it was a different time than normal.
Okay, if you'll let us know when it is, we'll, RACVB, does Melissa have anything?
Yes, it's 5:30 on the 18th.
5:30, okay.
Yeah, there's no reportable information.
Okay. Other committees, boards, or commissions? None. City managers report.
Just update on our CARES Act projects. Most of the projects are going to be, will begin probably within the next 4 weeks, and we hope to have most of them completed within the next 2 months. And that is the sneeze shields at the counters, the automatic doors, the touchless faucets, and then obviously the update of the council chambers. We should be signing that agreement. I should have signed it today, probably tomorrow morning. and get that off and get it moving. They have to get the parts ordered and all the components. So that's on track.
Okay, future agenda items? Okay, mayor and council comments. I would like to make one. I've asked for a couple, 3, 4 past years of trying to do a landscape and lighting district all over the entire city as one. I know you all have absolutely nothing to do, and you know, but I would like us to look at that again, because I see that we did this one, this last project differently for landscape and lighting, and I'm wondering if we can talk about maybe, is it a better way? Is it a different way? I didn't exactly understand why it was different. And so I'm wondering if we can talk about it both as an agenda item or as a process, and what is different and why part of it is for one thing and part of it is for residential as opposed to commercial. So I'd like to see us have
Actually,
that.
I'd like to suggest that be on the infrastructure committee, because I've had people suggest that maybe from now on when we do track maps, that we do them as a HOA. Is that right?
Yes.
An HOA instead of the way we've done them.
We can just talk about infrastructure.
We just want to put it on infrastructure to talk. Okay, all right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, is there any other, no council comments? Okay, well
Actually,
then,
I do want to say one. I want to tell our businesses and our citizens to hang in there. I've talked to a lot of people, both young and old. This is hard on lots of people. Emotionally, we keep getting strung along. At first it was slow the curve, and now it's like, I guess we can't have any cases before we can go back to normalcy. So hopefully everybody, show love to one another. Try to do what you can to wear your masks and respect when you go into businesses, to follow their wishes, and hang in there.
buy gift certificates from those businesses and pass them out as just because of gifts. Please support our local businesses. Thank you, Lindsay, for saying that.
And I think the only real action we have is recall.
Well,
Did it,
the action
12
is at
years
the
ago?
ballot box.
Well,
Yeah,
Unfortunately, he's not up for election for a little while, so.
yeah.
he's what?
Well, there's a recall.
He's still in,
vote.
yeah.
I think there's a recall already
There
started
is,
yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we're adjourned.
Is it?